Can the Nashville Predators keep their season alive for one more game? At least. We'll preview tonight's Game 6 at Bridgestone Arena and talk about what may be the biggest X factor in this game on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day, every single day. Happy Friday and happy game day, everybody. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, want to shout out our loyal Locked On Pred heads, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys, and we appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio.
Big day today for the Smashville contingent. It is Game 6 at Bridgestone Arena. Predators down 3-2. They need to win this game to keep the season alive. And as we mentioned yesterday, don't have a great track record at Bridgestone Arena in elimination games. So will this be the exception? We'll talk about today's game. We'll also talk about the impact of goaltending. Some little stuff going on in the air on the Vancouver side of things. How much of a factor will that play into tonight's game? Plus a couple of the X factors. And we'll take a look at the Western Conference playoffs so far. We've already had some series end, another one, maybe another two that could end tonight. So we'll take a step back and look at what the Western Conference is looking at right now. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. It's the fast-paced game that lets you team up with your friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, Ann, let's talk about tonight's Game 6 at Bridgestone Arena. First off, sort of a general overall question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What's sort of the vibe around Smashville right now going into tonight's game?
As far as the players and coaches go, like everybody seems so calm. Everybody just seems very calm. And it's interesting to me, and I kind of it's reassuring. I think that's how you want this team to kind of approach this, second elimination game at home. But everybody seems very calm. This is such a weird series because these games could have gone either way. Sometimes the team that played the best didn't get the win. So it's just been such an odd series. But I really think the vibe in the locker room is calm. Very calm. I don't feel like anybody is panicking.
And it's also, it's also a weird, it's sort of a weird series because even in the wins, it doesn't seem like the players or fans have been like totally satisfied. It feels like, like Nashville Predators played really well in a couple of games, didn't get the win, weren't happy with how they played in Game 5, did get the win. So it just does. It feels like, I don't know. It just feels like neither team is really going out and seizing momentum in the way that you think they would, or, it's not like some of these other series we talk about, like Colorado or LA, where you just sort of get get the ball rolling and, you can really feel them sort of imposing their will as the series goes on. It's not like that. It still seems very back and forth. And I think because of that, there really is a sense, and the Canucks fans listening in on this, I think you'll agree, there really is a sense that like tonight could really go either way. And I would get the sense that if, let's say that Nashville does win tonight, I would get the sense that that same feeling is still going to be there for Game 7, where it just feels like either team could really pull the other, sort of off of the tug of war rope.
Right. And I think if we're just being honest, looking at the regular season, looking at the roster, looking at the team stats, I think if we're just being honest, we have to say that Vancouver is on paper the better team in the 2023-2024 season. I don't feel like that's a hot take at all.
No.
But in this series, I don't know whether, I think it's a little bit of both, where Nashville has done enough and Vancouver hasn't done quite enough, that it has made this series one where I literally won't be surprised if it ends in game 6 tonight. I won't be surprised if it goes to 7 games and Vancouver wins. I won't be surprised if it goes to 7 games and Nashville wins, because this has just been such an odd series. And you talked about, sometimes the team that plays the best doesn't get the win. Sometimes the team that didn't play the best. And it was actually a very funny conversation. Andrew Burnett is a straight shooter. Like, let me just tell you, if you ask Andrew Burnett a question, here's his answer in plain language. But Andrew Burnett kind of made a funny yesterday in the press conference talking about how the coaches come into a post game and talk about the game. So I want to play that for you because it emphasizes your point about just how weird this series has been. This is what Andrew Burnett had to say.
Andrew, it seems like a bizarre series. After every game, the winning coach sounds like the losing coach, and the losing coach sounds like the winning coach. Do you feel like it's been strange? Maybe it's the margins, but it feels like the better team has lost the game in which they were the better team in most of these.
Yeah, I mean, we're grumpy old men, I guess, too, right? So I think we're never happy in our business. I just think it's been an extremely close series. And yeah, you probably have a little bit of valid point there, and that's playoff hockey a lot of times. And I don't think any of the games were grossly outplayed by either team. I thought we had a really good game. 3 and 4, but maybe we had the advantage there. And I think the other games, if it's come down to like last game, somebody makes a play, there's a bounce, there's a special team play, there's 5-on-6 goals. But I think it's been an extremely close series. And, I think when you lose, you're never overly happy. And sometimes when you win, you get even madder. And like I said, it's a coach syndrome, I think.
I relate to him. I relate to him just getting grumpy at a certain age and not wanting to take any sort of compliments whatsoever. Yeah. It's like, hey, you look nice today. This whole thing.
Whatever.
Shut up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. That's how I respond to every compliment is just shut up.
Shut up. Oh, that's so heartwarming. It's really funny though, because it's what the reporter said was so true is that, we've been able to sit in with Rick Tocchet. We've been able to sit in with Andrew Burnett. And if you were just listening to the post-game presser with the head coaches, you would maybe not have any idea who won that game. And I love that Andrew Burnett's like, it's coaches syndrome. And I'm like, okay, if either one of you win the Stanley Cup, will you say, hey, look what we did? I don't know. But this series really has made it that way where you can't really tell maybe from looking at the stat sheet. You can't maybe tell from listening to the head coach's post-game presser what the hell happened and who the heck won. Like just don't know.
And again, that just goes to that weird series that it's been where I feel like these two teams – and we mentioned, I think Vancouver's got an edge in talent and depth going into the season. I think we've been very open in saying that, very open in crediting how good Vancouver is as a team. But it just really feels like when you really sort of break it down and kind of zoom out on a bigger picture, like these two teams aren't that far apart. And they each kind of have, maybe a little bit of advantage here, maybe a little bit of advantage here. And I think that's why both of these all of these games, 1 through 5 have just been so, back and forth, give and take. Like, Predators dominating game 1. All of a sudden, in the span of 12 seconds, Vancouver completely flips the game on its head. Vancouver coming out, having all the momentum in game 2. Preds win that game 4-1, despite it being really tight. And then, games 3 and 4, I think you can argue the Predators were the better team by far in both of those games, except for the fact that they didn't win. They fell victim to a really good goaltending performance and then an absolute collapse at the end. And then game 5, Vancouver, again, played really well. They came out, those first 2 periods, they looked like they were ready to clinch this.
They were done.
They absolutely look like the better team. And Nashville, again, squeaks out a 2-1 win and sends the series back to Bridgestone Arena. So I'm with you, Ann. Like, I would not be surprised at any result here tonight. I would not be surprised at any series result at this point, just because it really feels like these two teams are so tight that we've seen it in each of the 5 games, just a sliver of the game, just a 1 to 2 minute stretch somewhere. Doesn't necessarily have to be all at the end like it was in game 4, but just a 1 to 2 minute stretch somewhere in that game, one mistake somewhere in that game. That's what's going to wind up flipping this game on the head and is going to give the win to a team. So I'm with you. I think we can expect anything to happen tonight.
The only thing that would surprise me I just want to say the only thing that would surprise me in this series, whether it's 1 more game or 2 more games, is if there was a game with a final score that had a difference of like 3 goals. I just think this is going to be like a 2-goal final score. One of them's an empty net kind of thing. Like, I would be shocked if we had like a 5-1 game. That's the only thing that would shock me at this point.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned until next week when we break down the Nashville Predators 6-0 loss here.
There you go.
6, ending the season. Let's talk about game 6 and what the X factors for tonight are going to be, plus a discussion about goaltending. Talked a little bit about some weird reactions to UC Saros. Vancouver's goaltending situation still up in the air. How much of it is going to factor into tonight's game? We'll talk about that coming up in just 1 second. First, though, I want to mention today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. We have reached winner take all time in both the NHL and the NBA postseason, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win all of your own. And that's because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's right. All you have to do is put $5 down, nail your pick, and you get $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and much, much more. So get in on the postseason action. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Ann, heading into tonight's Game 6 at Bridgestone Arena, a very weird 6 o'clock central puck drop.
Oof.
Have
Get
fun
there
with-
early to park, y'all, because Morgan Wallen is at Nissan, and it's going to be insane. So go early for parking.
Yeah, he can't come over beforehand and do the national anthem, maybe?
No, thank you.
Is he going to throw the flag from the third
I know. I'm like, if you're
300
going
level
to
of balcony, or
make it a catfish, but let's just not.
the man is the best in the business at throwing catfishes or other projectiles from high altitudes. We're gonna get a letter from his legal team. Let's talk about the things we are going to see tonight, Ann. First off, actually, no, let's go back to what we don't know what we're going to see tonight, and that's who's in goal for Vancouver. You talked to Rick Tocchet yesterday. He was being very either coy or very sort of non-committal about who was going to be in goal. Artur Silovs, I thought, played fine in game 5. I also, Casey DeSmith has been pretty solid in the times that we've seen him in the series so far. Had a big performance in game 3 before he got hurt. It seems like DeSmith is good enough to sort of go out there and test it. We just don't know who we're going to see. So, Ann, does it really matter that much whether it's DeSmith or whether it's Silovs in goal for the Canucks tonight?
It really hasn't mattered. And you would think that the biggest storyline, the biggest factor in this series would be when you hear one playoff team is down to their third string goaltender, but that has just not been a factor so far in this series. Vancouver has a ton of faith in Casey DeSmith. I think Artur Silovs has been phenomenal. People were like, oh, I don't know how he's going to do. Look, he's going to do fine. And he has. I thought he had some really great saves in game 5. He has played well. I think it helps tremendously that Vancouver just is not giving up much defensively. So it hasn't been games decided based on the second string or quote third string goaltender for Vancouver. I wonder, though, if at some point it will. Because I think goaltending could matter in a game, maybe tonight, looking at some of the advanced stats from this series so far. When you look at high danger chances, Vancouver has a slight edge. They've had 51 to 42 high danger chances in games 1 through 5. But when it comes to those high danger saves, Nashville has a 92%. And Vancouver has an 88% high danger save percentage. If Nashville could get inside and past the defense that has been so good in front of DeSmith and Silovs, then I think maybe the goaltending might make a difference. But Vancouver's defense has been so good, it hasn't been a problem. So it could be something Nashville could take advantage of, but they just haven't been able to. And credit to Vancouver for keeping Nashville out of that quality real estate for a lot of this series. So it could at some point become a factor. Maybe tonight.
And it's been a series in which there just hasn't been a lot of offense generated. Right. Not just the scoring, but you look at this last game in Vancouver, there were 42 combined shots. And that's very, very low for today's NHL. And it's funny, you go back and, Nashville was able to open it up a little bit at Bridgestone Arena. They had 30 shots in game 4. They had, I believe, 30 shots also in game 3 because they outshot the Canucks 30-12. That's a very weird stat or, shot distribution stat. Right. But it is interesting. And we kind of predicted this when we talked about games 3 and 4 when we were doing our previews. And we kind of predicted maybe it would get to Nashville and open up a little bit. Nashville, the perk of being on home ice is you get to control your matchups a little bit more than you do when you're on the road because you have the last change. And I'm wondering if that has maybe been a key in Nashville getting some of their big guns open against maybe more favorable matchups for them. Silovs played fine down the stretch in game 4. DeSmith played really well in game 3, easily stole that win for Vancouver. You have to wonder, though, in game 6, if the Preds can do that exact same thing again, if they can sort of manage their matchups, find some favorable matchups, and then that opens things up again for game 6. I agree. I think maybe that sort of leads the goaltending situation a little more critical because now instead of just having to make, 18, 19 saves to eke out this win, like, the Canucks did in some of the earlier games, now you're facing 30 shots. Now you're facing 32, 33 shots, and that's a bigger ask, especially of a third string goalie like Silovs. So I'm with you. I think if this game opens up a little bit more like we think it might, then I think the goaltending becomes more of an X factor, and that's where I think the Predators have an advantage with UC Saros over to Smith or Silovs.
Yeah. And I think, too, if Nashville can get in and get quality second and third chances, I feel like that's something that we haven't seen Nashville do. There have been rebounds left by DeSmith in the game that he played. Silovs, maybe a few, too. But Nashville really hasn't had a lot of second and third chances in front of the net in net front scrums. And I think in a series like this, those gritty, greasy goals could be the game winners. So goaltending could become a factor, but Nashville really has to get to the inside. And I think you see Saros in this game, in game 6, he's got to be able to make some of those great vintage Saros saves. So goaltending could become a factor in this series tonight. Maybe.
Yeah. The other factor, Anne, that's being talked about a little bit is just overall health, rest, sort of physicality in surviving this physical series, because let's face it, this is what 2,000 miles separate between these two teams, and they've now made multiple trips back and forth in the past week. It takes me 4 days to recover from just a flight from 2 time zones away. You're flying basically across the continent at this point. That's the other factor is, and that's not even to mention that it's a physical series. Which team can kind of, fight through that and stay focused, and which team can sort of survive the fatigue a little bit. I think that's going to be a big factor in tonight's game as well.
Yeah, we got a chance to talk yesterday to Ryan O'Reilly in the locker room and talked about for such a physical series, and especially with the amount of travel that these teams are doing, how do you stay physically ready to do it? And then I just want to preface this clip because I don't know that you'll be able to hear the follow-up question that is asked to Ryan O'Reilly, but he is asked about, do his children understand the level of fatigue that comes with this particular playoff series? This is a great conversation we got to have with Ryan O'Reilly yesterday.
Well, yeah, you got to do what you can. I think off the ice to take care of your body, and I think our training staff's unbelievable. It helps in that sense, and yeah, it's been a lot of time on the plane. And we kind of Yost were talking the other day. It goes game 7. It's going to be almost a full day on a plane after it, which is crazy when you think of you look at Florida Tampa series, and these guys might have been a couple hours on the plane total. It's unique, but that's the West. It's a grind. Especially changing time zones and doing what you can to kind of sleep properly. And it's a challenge, but both teams are going through it. So it's it's not like one team's not and the other. So it's do what you can and try to be as smart as you can with it.
You sure your kids understand when you get home the dad might be tired?
Not yesterday, that's for sure. They were full go. Right when I pulled in the driveway, they started running out, and right after, and I got another one due in a few week and a bit here too. So it's a little crazy at home right now, but they're good though. They're excited. They're enjoying the playoffs too, which is fun.
I don't think kids in general understand the concept of fatigue or health, Anne. And I say this as somebody who once watched my sister fall out of a 10-foot window and then just get up and walk away while she was 4.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I don't think kids understand the concept that we do as people in our, 30s,
or more.
Or I wasn't. No, you're in your 30s
ish.
Yeah. As people our age who it's we push a grocery cart the wrong way and we're out for 3 days.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't feel like fatigue in general is not something kids understand.
No, and you look at this series, it has been so physical. I mean, there have been so many hits in this series, and then you're talking about all of this air travel, which is not easy to recover from. And then Ryan O'Reilly pulls in his driveway, and his kids are like, "Dad's home, let's wrestle."
It's playtime right the hell now.
Right. Right now. So everybody pray for Ryan O'Reilly because, he's navigating young kids and a really tough playoff series. But again, both teams are dealing with this. It's just been a hard series. This has been a hard series for these two teams.
Yeah. Can the Nashville Predators survive another tough game and make it to game 7? We'll find out later tonight, I guess. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I would hope.
Yeah. And we will have a recap of whatever happens on Monday's Locked On Predators podcast. We'll either be celebrating a round 2 appearance or crying into more Fireball.
Either is fine.
Still more to get to on today's Locked On Predators podcast. The Preds and Canucks aren't the only teams playing in the playoffs right now. Of course not. We'll take a look at some other series in the Western Conference and the biggest surprises of the playoffs so far coming up here in just a second.
All right, we got to pause right here, and we need to talk a little bit more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Hey, that's a penalty. You already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. You can get unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
All right, and the Preds and Canucks aren't the only team playing in the Western Conference. We have 2 series already wrapped up. The Oilers beat the Kings in 5 games, and the Avalanche beat the the Avalanche beat the Jets in 5 games. And then the only other series besides Nashville still going on, the Dallas Stars lead the Vegas Golden Knights 3-2 in that series after going down 2-0. The Stars can win it tonight in Vegas right after the Preds game concludes. And what has kind of been the biggest surprise for you in the postseason so far in the Western Conference?
For me, the biggest surprise, hands down, happened in the Colorado-Winnipeg series. And for me, it was the play of Connor Hellebuyck. Connor Hellebuyck finished the series with an .870 save percentage, 5.23 goals against allowed. Colorado outscored Winnipeg 29-14. And that is shocking to me for Connor Hellebuyck, who is a phenomenal goaltender, who is likely the Vezina winner, and who is always money in the playoffs. Yeah. And what is so interesting is he said yesterday in kind of the locker room clean out media wrap up, he was saying, I think I was playing some of the best hockey of the season. And you think, I'm sorry, what? But he just felt like anytime he could see the puck, he could save the puck. But Colorado made it so difficult for him to see the shots coming in. But for me, that has been the biggest shock, because I always just automatically think Connor Hellebuyck equals money in the postseason. That has shocked me. Not necessarily that Colorado won, but that they won in 5 and that they so outscored Winnipeg.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Hellebuyck talk, because I think he said, for the vast majority of the Avs goals, he never even saw the puck. Yeah. That's how well they were getting screens. That's how fast they were moving. He said he was just kind of, having to react to other players reacting on the ice. And it was kind of interesting to hear him talk, because he said, when I saw the puck, I thought I was on my game. It was just kind of gives you a credit to how great the Avalanche were in that series. I'm with you there. I thought that this series would be a lot closer. I really like this Winnipeg team going into the postseason. We heard from some of our Locked On Avs friends that, the vibes in Colorado weren't that good going into the series, just because the Avs had, kind of had some struggles down the stretch. So I'm kind of surprised they wiped the floor with them. The biggest surprise to me also is Vegas blowing a 2-0 lead, both games that they took from Dallas in Dallas. And now Dallas has kind of looked like the more dominant team in that series over the past 3 games. And look, the thing is, even though Vegas was the last team in the Western Conference that got in, they're still the Stanley Cup champions, and they have most of their team back from that defending Stanley Cup team. Right. They just were missing a lot of them for quote unquote injuries, because, and that down stretch where they weren't necessarily getting back into the top 3. So, I think a lot of people were saw Vegas go up 2-0. We're like, oh, there's our Stanley Cup champions,
Right.
work. They're showing everybody that, their placement didn't matter, that they're here, that they're one of the best teams in the West. And I'm surprised that, they sort of let Dallas back into the series, and credit to the Stars for what they've been able to do in these past couple of games.
Yeah, it's been such an interesting series. I was with you when Dallas went down by 2 games. I thought, wow, Vegas has got the momentum. They've won 2 games in Dallas. This is going to be a really quick series. And Dallas has just decided that's not it. I've been impressed with Jake Ottinger. I think he's come up with some really big saves at key times for Dallas to get them back in the series. My question for you, Nick, is just how salty and upset will Predators fans be if Matt Duchene wins a cup with the Dallas Stars? How's that going to go over here? I'm just curious.
I mean, they shouldn't be. It's not his fault he got cut. I think they'll be salty if he goes on like some sort of epic run or something like that and scores like 10 goals in the next like 3 series, or just goes on like an absolute heater, or wins the Conn Smythe or something like that. Then Preds fans are going to be like, screw this. What can you do though? Like they cut him. Can't really be mad.
Yeah. When you look at the Edmonton Kings series, of course, Edmonton wrapped that one up in 5 games as well. If you look at Edmonton and you look at, this Vancouver-Nashville series, which team do you think has a better shot at Edmonton, or do either of them have a chance to beat Edmonton in a series?
Well, it's interesting because it depends on whether either team can kind of get Edmonton to play their game. We know what Vancouver's game is take the big guns out of the equation, hold the shots to like 20-20, something like that, and make it a low scoring, sort of low event type of game. They do very well at that. Question is, can you do that with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl? Like, are you good enough to make 2 of the best players in the NHL, one of whom is the best player in the NHL, and make them play your style of game? For the Nashville Predators, at times they were this year. Remember, there was that big game in which it was back in, I want to say December, maybe the end of November, where everybody was predicting, here's another classic Edmonton wiping the floor with Nashville kind of game.
Right. And
Andrew Burnett did a couple of things different. He put, even with the matchups, put like Carrier and Lazan against Connor McDavid, and it worked. They were able to win that matchup. So, the Nashville Predators did do that. Can they do that for 7 games in the playoffs, where Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have really shown in losing efforts over the past couple of years? That's going to be the big question mark. Obviously just based on skill, Vancouver probably matches up a little bit better against Edmonton. But, if the Nashville Predators, you have a hot goaltender, you've done pretty well on defense. I don't know. Maybe you can find a way to keep yourself in that.
Yeah, I think it would be very interesting. Edmonton seems to have everything going for them right now. So I think whoever faces them in the second round, it's going to be a challenge. Zach Hyman, too, 7 goals in 5 games. He is just a man possessed. And of course, there's Matthias Ekholm, which, we always have to have a moment for Eki.
Yeah, we get Matthias Ekholm. We don't get Victor Arvidsson. Did you see them go head to head in the game the other night?
Oh my gosh.
Shoving between the two.
One of these things is not like the other. When you former Predator Victor Arvidsson and former Predator Matthias Ekholm, like, here's what I will say. I adore Matthias Ekholm. I wouldn't go up against him for nothing, because I think that Swede could kick some serious rear end. Like, that's so interesting to me that those two went after each other. Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's going to be an interesting one tonight, Ann. Nashville Predators, Vancouver Canucks, Game 6. The Predators need a win to keep their season alive. Can they pull it out? We're going to have to find out. We'll talk about whatever happens on Monday's episode. Good vibes, Ann. Let's hope for some good vibes here. Where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at penaltyboxradio.com. You can find me on social media at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at penaltyboxradio.com or follow me on the socials _NS Morgan. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back with an all-new episode next week. We'll see you then.